We are Rogue Media Sports.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it. Between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is the Doomsday Podcast, our second edition out here from Oxnard, California. Ed Werder alongside and Frito Nation Productions back in the far north Dallas area. And we got a lot to get to. In fact, a huge interview coming up with Stephen Jones and exclusive one-on-one type situation with Stephen. 20 minutes with Stephen. But a little news we want to react to today. News breaking earlier, various reports have Zeke Elliott making his way to Cabo. Ed, given this team's history with the word Cabo, now we know he went there during his suspension, but that was during his suspension. You know, there really wasn't, it's not like the Cowboys could be upset with that. He was suspended. He had to go somewhere, and they seemed to be okay and thought he would get his work in. Now it seems a little funny because of, the infamous Romo trip during the postseason to Cabo. He and Witten, of course, Witten never really gets attached to that story. It was all
Bobby
about
Carpenter, right?
Bobby was with him.
Yeah.
Bobby remains a good friend of mine. Still keep in touch
now.
with Bobby. No, until you brought him up there. He loves this podcast, by the way. Bobby Carpenter. But Ed, interestingly, the Cabo stuff, but then Jerry had a quote. He was talking with all the various, and, Jerry kind of likes to give, hey, I'll give Bill Jones this. I'll give Ducey this. Maybe Hanson. Maybe even Newey. I'll say something to him.
First Sunday car wash.
Correct. Maybe I'll say something interesting to this guy. Well, Bill Jones, CBS. Bill has a way of breaking these barriers down. What did Jerry say to Bill that has drawn great interest here in camp?
He said, quote, referring obviously to the Zeke Elliott holdout, "You don't have to have a rushing champion to win a Super Bowl." And I would say that Jerry Jones is probably the only owner in the NFL who should not be making that statement. And here's why. The only way the Cowboys have won a Super Bowl since he's owned the team is by having the NFL rushing champion the same season. There have been 4 instances of that during the Super Bowl era. Terrell Davis of the Broncos won the rushing championship, and his team won the Super Bowl in 1998. And then Emmitt Smith 3 times, 1992, 1993, 1995. Jerry Jones has never won a Super Bowl ring unless his team also had the NFL rushing champion. But he can also point out that in 1993, as defending Super Bowl champions, they didn't have the rushing champion because of a contract disagreement. Emmitt's contract had actually expired, his rookie contract, and he didn't have another one. This is a holdout. A player who is signed and is withholding his services is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the point could be the same. And we talked to Stephen about that experience in 1993 and how it benefits or how it factors into whatever happens here going forward with Zeke Elliott.
We did, and very interesting stuff. Ed, I like that you pointed that out. That Jerry, it's very odd that he would be the one making this point, but boy, he drove it home. He said these teams know it. You don't always have to have the rushing champion, and so Jerry, in some ways, made a point and then trapped himself. He sort of got himself into a trap. I thought Stephen played it. Stephen played a little better than Jerry did with us, but also Stephen made some. I thought some fascinating points in this 20-minute 30-minute discussion, not only about Zeke, the overall talent of the team. I thought Stephen hits on some big-time points that we're about to get into.
Yeah, and he also talked about it's very clear now he's in charge of personnel, so he's in charge of creating the roster that Jason Garrett is given to go win with. And he talked about the fact that there's a lot of pressure on Jason Garrett, and he's well aware of it being in the last year of his contract, and that Jerry and Steven haven't had championship game, Super Bowl experience in a long time, and that's the expectation from this coach and this team this season.
Yeah, and he also owns up to a big mistake that occurred going into last year's camp and that they seem to have resolved as we head into this camp. Without further ado, Ed, let's do it. Let's turn it over. This is our interview with Stephen Jones, Cowboys Director of Personnel, Executive Vice President of Personnel, Grand Poobah. 20 good minutes with Stephen Jones. Here it is. Stephen Jones, pretty much director of everything for the Cowboys, joining us. Ed Werder, Matt Mosley, the Doomsday Podcast, and Stephen.
Why do you have your back turned to the man?
This is how I like to.
I feel like a curveball's coming.
It's a trick pitch.
I like to ease into things, Ed, if you'll allow me to do it the way I want. Stephen.
He's kinky.
That's right. Not the first time.
Off to a good start. Got our first headline.
Yeah, exactly. Stephen, this is we've been kind of pouring over the roster. Ed even knows who some of these rookies are. Number 79 rings a bell. Number 36 jumps out at us. But this has, even cynical Ed admitted earlier today that this is one of the deeper, as far as talent is concerned, one of the deeper rosters you guys have had in the past 10, 15 years. Is that an accurate statement? Do you kind of feel that way when you kind of look at what you guys have assembled going into this season?
Yes, I think, Will and I have had long discussions about it, been visiting with the coaching staff about it. I mean, we really don't have anyone, which is rare, that we're trying to really pinpoint it and say, hey, we got to replace this guy. And, and to the contrary, actually, that's this is going to be one of our tougher cuts we've had since the 90s. And, there's a lot of battles going on, and I'm sure there's going to be even more as we progress that guys are going to step up and play. But, I give hats off to Will and our scouting staff. They've done a great job of, assembling these young guys. And I think we had another good draft, another good college free agency, and, just feel really good about where we are with this roster, whether it's the offensive line, the defensive line, the backers, the DBs, the receivers. I mean, just right on down the line, we just feel like there's going to be some great competition, which at the end of the day, I think makes you a much better football team when people are out there knowing, that there's no gimmies. And, it's always interesting. One of the things that points it to me, too, I read you guys and people's projections on who's going to make the final 53, and everybody's got a different one now. It used to be, hey, other 2 or 3 guys.
We know these 20 guys are making
these 50 guys are in, and there's 3 guys that maybe they're different. Now you got, some cases guys have 10 or 15 different guys, that there's a different opinion about. So I think that says it all. It's a good group, and we're fired up, and to me that just makes for a great camp. I really can't wait to see these guys get the pads on and really let the competition begin.
What's the upside to having Jason Garrett coach into the final year of his contract?
Well, I just think it's one of those things. He's done it before and did it well.
2014.
Yeah, and he did it well. And, I just think we want to take this next step. And, I think he says it best. Everybody's back's against the wall, whether it's Jerry, whether it's myself, getting these players signed up here in camp. I mean, everybody feels the pressure for this team to take the next step. Everybody wants to say, well, you got a good roster and you're making some good strides, but we hadn't been to a championship game, we hadn't been to the big game in a lot of years, and everybody knows that's the expectation, and we've got to take that next step, and I think that's where it comes down here, and I think Jason knows that. I mean, he understands that and it's not, it's not like it's black and white. It's got to be that way. I mean, there's always extenuating circumstances, but I think everybody has high expectations for this team, especially within the organization.
So can you just do that with Dak, too? I mean, he's playing in the final year of his contract. Are we just going to treat that kind of like you are with Garrett? I mean,
well, you just don't know. I mean, it could work out that way. I don't think so. I hope not. We're trying to work a deal with Dak. He's got an offer in front of him. All three of them have offers in front of them. But, I think Dak's got a bright future here as well. And I think he's, all he's done is win football games. I mean, he's I think some of his stats and his wins totals stack up with anybody coming out of college in his first 3 years as quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And, on top of that, his leadership is just, tip-top. And, I think in general, he's just a special guy. And I think he's ready to take that next step too. I mean, I really do believe the pieces are here. Now we've got to see how this works out.
One of the pieces that isn't here is Ezekiel Elliott. Mm-hmm. At what point does his holdout become a serious concern for you guys? Now it's probably not that big a deal. He's not going to do a lot out here. He didn't play in the preseason last year, but at some point it becomes an issue.
I was surprised they went on with camp.
Well, we're not an organization where we just talk openly about how negotiations are coming. I think it's, there's nothing positive that comes from that. At the end of the day, the players, the three players and the guys who represent them know we're working on this. And, I'm optimistic. I mean, historically, we get these things done. Now, could be an exception to the rule. You never know. I mean, this is a changing environment. I think someone said the other day, first time in quite some time, there's been, 5, 6, 7 holdouts from training camp that are under contract. So, it's a new time, and there's a labor negotiation that started. And so, there's some unknowns out there. So we'll have to work through that and see. I mean, you ask me, am I optimistic? I'm optimistic, but we'll just have to see. And but I do feel good about it. I think we've got three guys who are really, really great football players, and I think they're three guys that want to be Dallas Cowboys. They want to be as well.
Given Zeke's importance and the action that he's taken here, withholding his services and not honoring his contract, does that cause you to reprioritize the three guys? Like, do you need to spend more time on Zeke since he's not here than Dak or Amari?
No. Believe it or not, we can multitask, Ed. I mean, we could. I mean, theoretically, if they all came hot, I mean, we could do them all in the same day, and announce them all in the same day. Now, is that going to happen? Probably not, but it's very doable. I mean, the timing, the amount of time, and I know probably this isn't a great ad for the agents out there, but there's not near as much time as you guys think actually spent on the negotiation. There's a lot of, we'll send an offer, and then they'll wait a while, then they'll send an offer, and we're not happy, and we'll wait a long time, and it's not near as time intensive as everybody wants to believe it is.
In my contract situations, I usually send an offer and don't hear anything for months. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know if it's months with these guys, but there's time in between.
How does the experience that you and Jerry and this organization had in 1993 with Emmitt Smith actually going so far as to miss 2 regular season games in a contract dispute, how does that experience factor into your comfort level with all this?
I think all experience is good. I mean, when you've been doing something for 30 years, you've seen a lot of things, and it can only be a positive to help you. And Jerry and I were actually talking about that on some other subjects. I think anytime you've been involved in something for 30 years and you've got that kind of experience, it can only be a good thing for you. And I think, you draw on all those experiences, all those situations, and you plug that into your thoughts as you move forward. So now at the same time, I think every situation's different, and there's no way to just say, hey, this one's identical to that one. It's a different CBA, a different time, different salary caps, different amounts of money, different agents, different players. It's just very difficult, but you can pull on experiences that hopefully will be a positive in terms of ultimately getting everything done.
Do you have to? I know you have to factor in a lot of things. Zeke, for whatever reason, has had trouble getting through these off seasons without something cropping up. I know you guys think a lot of him, and he's been an incredible part of the team. But when you're negotiating these things and talking about, okay, what are we going to be able to do with him moving forward, do you at least have to factor some of that in, or does it not? Does that stuff not come up in your mind that often?
I've always told my children the same thing. I mean, your full body of work is on display when you want to, whether you want a job, whether you want to get into college, whether it's your everything you do can be examined, and I think that's true with anything, whether you're a coach, whether you're a professional, whether you're a media person. When you're out there and you want to get hired, or you want to get a raise, or you want a new contract, I think everything comes into play.
One of the interesting things about the Zeke Elliott situation is both sides can point to the Todd Gurley contract at about this time last year to justify their positions, right?
Guys, I'm not going to cut you off, but we're about done talking about contracts. If you have any other things you want to talk about our team, I'd love to visit with you, but I think we've said all we can say about these
I knew you liked the Rams too much to say anything about the Gurley negotiations.
But we can talk about other things.
Okay, let's talk about other things. Let's talk about Travis Frederick's return. Tomorrow you guys will be in pads for the first time. I know he feels really good about where he is and the progress he's made, but he stopped short of saying, I'm back because I've got to do it physically on the field in a football environment. But how much would that mean to you guys to get him anywhere close to what he was?
My hat's just off to Travis, what he went through and how he persevered, the way he handled himself. I mean, it was like having another offensive line coach out there. I mean, he never missed a meeting. He never missed a session. He was right there every step of the way for the guys. I mean, he's just a special guy, and we're so fortunate and probably now more happy than ever we have him, to a long-term contract with the Dallas Cowboys. And, on hindsight, as great as Joe Looney did, stepping in and, letting us work through not having Travis Frederick. Whenever you miss an all-pro center, it's going to hurt a little bit. And there's no question we missed him when we went back and, looked at all the games. And, if I'm betting on anybody, I'm betting on Travis, but no one knows his situation better than himself. I'm sure that is something that he wants to do, is really feel it, because, this time last year he didn't know what was wrong. And he knew something wasn't right. And he knew something wasn't going the right way. And I know no one knows, what it's going to feel like than Travis, whether he's 100%, whether he's 110, or he's 90 or 95. We all got our fingers crossed he's 100%. So that's what we're rooting for. I'm sure he will let us know as we go here.
How much different do you feel right now about, this receiving core now becomes a real strength for you guys, it seems like, with the addition of Cobb, Gallup second year, Amari you make the trade for. How vastly different are you this year as opposed to where we sat this time last year? Really
big, no question, and we probably underestimated that on hindsight. We'll certainly deserve to wear that one. Jerry, myself, Will. I just think it was tough on Dak. We didn't really have any defined roles for the receivers. Sometimes guys were lining up as X's and sometimes Y's and sometimes ones and sometimes twos. Obviously Beasley was our consistent slot there. But we had a lot of guys, and, as as a quarterback, different guys, as much as they want everybody to run the same route the same way, they don't. And they all have strengths and weaknesses. And that's the biggest thing Amari did, is he just came in and all of a sudden everybody had a defined role. We had a 1 in Amari, we had a 2 in Gallup, we had a 3 in Beasley, and then we had some really nice players to step in like Hearns, which, we're sick. We're going to miss Hearns, but unfortunately that's what comes when you have great young players, is you can't afford to pay a fourth receiver $5 million. It's just the numbers don't pan out. But hopefully we've drafted well. We've got some good young guys to step up and compete out there. We were fortunate to get Tavon back. But I do think the receiving core is night and day, and I think it's going to be so helpful for Dak to know, hey, I know who's lining up out there. Yeah. I know where 19 is. I know where 13 is. I know where 18 is. And then I know we got some good guys that can help out when we need them. And, that consistency, I think, is so big for the quarterback.
To your credit, recognizing the weakness that you had in the middle of the season and making the move that you did to surrender your first-round pick to get Amari Cooper. Did you, when you look back at it, are you still surprised at the immediate impact that he made over the rest of the season?
Well, one thing I would say this, and no way being defensive, we tried hard to go get a one in Watkins, and we unfortunately went to Kansas City. I mean, we don't lose many like that when we're willing to pay.
I think you're better
similar
off.
money, and I think we are too. I'm kind of glad it worked out that way. But
sometimes
not that I don't think Sammy
make
Watkins is a hell of a football player,
right.
but I think it did work out. But we were trying to do it the traditional way. Where we underestimated is when you don't get it done, that it's not great for your young quarterback, that it's not really conducive to having a highly productive offense if you end up short like that. And as I said, when you do this stuff for 30 years, we'll recall on that one at some point if we decide, hey, we're struggling here, we don't got a one yet, we better get one hell or high water. But I do think, it's something that you learn from, and I think we're going to benefit a lot from it. And what's going to be interesting is to see the battle after the top three, who comes to the forefront.
What's the significance in your mind of Jason Witten unretiring and coming back to play for the Cowboys, and how closely are you watching him to see how well he's moving and how he can
I got all the confidence in Jason, and I know he's going to go out there and he's going to play well. The question is it going to be really well, great? What's the level going to be? But I'm not on hanging on tooth and nail wondering how that's going to work. He's going to be solid. He's going to be a great leader. We're going to benefit from having 82 back out on that football field. And then, we really like the young tight ends behind him, and they're going to benefit from it. I mean, as y'all all know, Blake Jarwin was, coming on strong at the end. And then I think Schultz has had a great offseason and ready to take another step there. And then, of course, Rico's got to bring consistency to his game. No one knows that more than him. And this is a huge year for him. You can only develop for so long before you got to make a decision. And so this is a huge camp for him. We'll see how he does it. Obviously, he looks the part, and at times, he can play the part, and then he can be inconsistent. So hopefully he can pick up more consistency in his game, and we'll see how that unfolds.
How did you arrive at Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator? Kitnot, we talked to him earlier today, and that looks like it's going to be a great fit for Dak and everything. But Kellen, on paper, he's a Linehan disciple. Obviously, you guys decided to part ways from Linehan. How in that process did you kind of arrive at the point we need to promote this guy and give him an opportunity?
We just, obviously when you interact like we do with our coaches, whether it's Scott, whether it's Jason, whether it's Dak, whether the player, whether it's Romo, you get a feel for a guy as they're coming along. And, most guys are proteges of some people, but they still add their element to it. And we just have a good feeling that Kellen's going to bring the wrinkles that we need, that sometimes it's just hard for a guy who's, does what he does for so long to change. And there's nothing wrong with it, but sometimes it's just difficult. And I think it was just time for us to try that, to do that. And I think Kellen's going to be outstanding. I think he's going to be great for Dak. I think he's going to bring, the wrinkles that we need that go with the personnel. He's, one of the things we love about a guy like Kellen is, he understands that you put your offense and then you adapt to your personnel in terms of the schemes that you want to run to give them the best chance to have success. And it's a talented group over there on the offensive side of the ball. You challenge your coaches. You hope they'll do it, but you hope they'll use their weapons. You hope they'll figure out how to use Pollard in a way that you look down at New Orleans and they got Ingram pounding it, and then Kamara making plays on the field, and then you look at a guy like Tavon, and can you come up with ways to use his special skills, which is, as Walter Gillis used to say, life-threatening speed. But, we've got some weapons out there, and then the question is, how do you bring it all into a system? You marry the run with the pass, and you create an offense that's difficult for the defenses to know what you're going to be doing from play to play. And even when you snap the ball, whether it's still till you actually see it, is it going to be a run or a pass? And I think that's a big deal for us.
We haven't touched much on the defense, and we won't spend as much time on the defense as the offense as you look at your watch because you got to go.
Yeah.
But real quick on the defense, I think we saw, kind of the birth of a potentially great young defense last year. Big part of it was Jalen Smith. But you look at right now, you got Tank Lawrence isn't participating. Byron Jones isn't participating. Randy Gregory, who knows what's going to happen with him? He's still suspended. You have any concerns about having all your pieces in place when the season opens defensively?
No, we feel really good. As you know, we don't know about Randy, so I want to qualify that one. I mean, he's suspended in the league. They control that situation. Yeah. So we're obviously, how we feel about Randy. He's obviously, has things that are much more important than football that he's working on right now, and we're rooting for him, and we'll see. But having said that, I think all the other pieces will be there for the start of the season, and we're going to, beat the Giants right now. We don't need Tank Lawrence out there grinding away or Byron Jones out there grinding away right now. They're out there. They're getting it. They're taking the mental reps, and we just feel really good about this young defense. As you said, I think we've had as much going into this camp. Bring a guy in like a Quinn, and you draft a guy with what was our first pick. You bring a big-time defensive tackle in here like Tristan Hill, and we just feel good about everything. Leighton Vander Esch had a great year as well, right along with Jalen. I mean, there's some things that you'll see as we go here in camp that we do got three linebackers like Sean Lee and Leighton and Jalen that we can do some things that I think can give the other team some real fits in terms of trying to figure out what we're really doing on the defensive side of the ball. When you know a guy like Sean Lee can play all spots, Leighton can play all spots, Jalen can play all spots. I think we're going to have some advantages there, and just very optimistic about this defense. I know everybody wants to point to safety. We feel good that we've got really good safeties. Do we have established all pros back there? No, but do we have guys who can play the game? Yes.
Do you think Chad Morris is, most importantly, at Arkansas is ready to turn this thing around?
I hope so, and I hope he does it with my son. No, in all seriousness, I am rooting for Chad, and actually my son's actually here. They
saw him yesterday. Jerry made a big spectacle of calling him over and chewing him out in front of the media.
Three or 4 days here he gets to spend, but I know he's fired up about what Chad's doing up there, and I know the Razorback fans are. He had a great recruiting year, and we're all rooting for him.
Steve, we appreciate him. Sorry, Ed took it too far with the contract talk. And
You know what? One thing I've noticed, the one commonality among all our guests is that at a certain point they all start looking at their watches.
Y'all keep
are we at a bus stop or are we talking football here?
I know. We pushed him a little too long.
No, y'all are good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen.
Always good being on.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
There he goes. Stephen Jones on the Doomsday Podcast. Obviously a highlight of his camp. Yeah. All right, there he was, Stephen Jones, and Ed, you kind of pushed him over the edge. Our folks heard him bristle, and he said no more Zeke questions. I think we got about 4 or 5 counter punches in there, and then at the end, thought we had a feel-good moment. I kind of apologized on your behalf.
As you so often do.
That's right.
Whether I intend to apologize or not, you usually do it for me.
I can go ahead and do that for you. And, Ed, I think I smoothed things over.
Good.
And we had a nice ending. We did get to talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball with Steven. And so that was good.
What I thought was interesting was that, the end of the Zeke Elliott subject came out of nowhere. He didn't previously indicate that he was becoming tired of the subject and that he had really said all he intended to say publicly on the topic of Zeke Elliott's holdout. And then all of a sudden I bring up the interesting point about the Rams and how, Zeke Elliott can justify his holdout for a contract that surpasses Todd Gurley's at the same point in his career. Gurley got a new contract, made him the highest paid running back in the NFL. Zeke's won, 2 out of 3 rushing titles. And then at the same time, the Cowboys can say, look what happened. They're managing his carries at the end of the year. He didn't perform in the playoffs. And would the Rams make the same contract offer now? No.
Yeah.
So that's where he kind of cut me off.
I think so. And I think
it's because a part of me wonder. I know he has a close relationship with Les Snead and Sean McVay and that group out there, and a part of me wonders if he didn't want to put himself in a position where it might seem he's critical of what the Rams decided to do with Todd Gurley.
Well, that might be it, or maybe it was just unfair of you. I think it's really.
I never consider that
really what it comes down to. And there was a kind of a clerical point. Love it when you sort of provide these explanations. Some people have been bringing up this August 6th date because it involves him accruing one more season, and that's been kind of bandied about a little bit.
Toward free agency.
What can you shed a little light on that for us?
So the CBA requires a player who's under contract, as Zeke is to the Cowboys right now, to report to training camp no later than 30 days before the season opener. In this case, it's next week. It's August the 6th. Now, everybody assumes that Zeke will cave and come in because he doesn't want to get pushed another year away from free agency. And everybody says, well, how come that didn't happen to Aaron Donald? Well, it did happen to Aaron Donald, who missed the last 2 training camps with the Rams, and he accepted the risk. He took the risk that, okay, I'm 2 years away from free agency now instead of 1, but I'm going to get the big deal for multiple years, so that's going to be a moot point in his mind. So he took that gamble, and the question is that something that Zeke Elliott is also prepared to do at the end of next week when August 6th comes around? I talked to a team executive today who said, hey, it's no big deal to a player of Zeke Elliott's stature. It's not really much of a gamble at all. So
to hold out past that,
to hold out beyond
August
6th, which a lot of people think Zeke can't possibly do.
Yeah, that's a good. I'm glad you clarified that. Ed, it's gotten really hot out here this afternoon. It has gotten into about the 78, 79 degrees. Why have you chosen a long sleeve shirt today? I mean, I'm a little, I don't know.
Well,
is there any reason for that?
It's always cool enough when
there's
this marine layer in the late afternoon hours of practice to cover up a little more. But this is really a packing faux pas on my part in that I did not pack 3 Travis Matthew golf shirts as I thought I did. I only packed 2, and therefore I had to wear a button down and roll up the sleeves one day. And I chose for today to be that day.
Well, I hear you, and I'm going to try to get you started on a group that I think will be sponsoring us soon, Cricket. CRIQUET. Oh, man, they put out some good shirts. I'm wearing my Baylor gear today, so I don't have that on. But, Ed, we are getting ready, you and I, after that, big-time interview with Stephen Jones, to watch a padded practice.
I'm so excited.
We are going to go out there. They're actually strapping on the pads a little bit. Any concern? We found out today, before this practice, that Travis Frederick, we had a great interview with him, if I do say so myself, about a month and a half ago.
So the minicamp.
At the Cowboys minicamp. And, boy, he opened up to us about just sort of his trepidation and just, hey, I won't know if I'm fully back until I'm at. I said, well, that would be in a preseason game. He said, no, it could happen in practice, but at least so far they seem to be kind of easing him into things.
Well, it's a veteran day off, and apparently this was scheduled. Seems kind of convenient that he would miss the first padded practice, but Jason Garrett insisted that it did not reflect any concern they have about his health. Recovering after missing the entire season with an autoimmune disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And it was interesting to listen to Jason talk about some of the symptoms that he was experiencing about a year ago now. It was out here during training camp that he wasn't feeling quite himself. And Jason was saying how they noticed on film he was on the ground a lot more often than he typically would be as a dominant player. He also talked about, now that he seemingly is healthy and assuming he gets somewhere close to the player he was before he went through all of this. And like you said, he's not sure, when or if that'll happen. But just the value that a great center brings to the offense and to the offensive line. And so I think that's one of the reasons that they expect to be a lot better team on offense throughout the course of this season. His absence was a huge loss last year.
All right, I'm going to take a peek this afternoon. Tristan Hill, Malik Collins. If you'll take a peek at the offensive line, I'm really going to zero in on the defensive line and take a hard look at that group. And we're going to get some team drills going.
So we could be watching the same drills. I'll watch it from an offensive point of view.
Please do. Yeah, please do.
I noticed that Tony Wise Jimmy Johnson's former offensive line coach back there in the Dynasty days was here today.
How about that?
And I wonder if that makes Mark Colombo a little nervous.
They've already
because they made an offensive line change in the middle of last season and brought back Hudson Houck to help him. But no, actually,
a consultant.
Jason said Mark Colombo's done a great job, and he knew he would be coaching at a high level at some point shortly after his playing days were over, and that's where we are right now.
Tremendous work all the way around, Ed. Gathering Stephen. I thought Paul Catalina, who has been on the radio this afternoon with ESPN Central Texas, but then producing on site for us.
I think he's been stealing all of our interviews and putting them on his own radio show.
I think that may be
he's in
happening.
a negotiation himself.
I think that can happen.
He's taking the opposite approach of Zeke. He's not withholding service. He's providing additional services.
I think so. He's helped himself to some of our material, and I totally appreciate, and I think he deserves that, especially if I keep asking him to buy me things. Well, I tell you,
like
Paul,
what?
No,
like
just
what would he buy you? The coffee in your cup.
That's right, grilled cheese sandwiches and all that kind of good stuff. It is fun to be out here, Oxnard, California. This is the second episode of our trip to Oxnard and our podcast. Ed, strong work from you. Anything last minute? I know you take a lot of notes. Anything you want to add before we go out to observe this practice? Anything catch your eye?
I was just trying to think of some of the points that Jason Garrett was making during his press conference today, because I thought he was actually
illuminating.
Interesting at least.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't want to get too far. One thing I've noticed, Ed, is that you and I, we're going to have to dig in and get to know some of these younger players. Like today, Sean Lee basically climbed over that fence right there in front of us to give me a little bit of a hug. And then Witten, normally, I don't know, Witten's kind of been hot and cold with us, but normally very happy to see us. I feel like some of the more tenured players really show excitement when we come here. Some of the younger players, I don't feel like we've given them a chance to know us. I think it's time for us to get to know some of those guys, like Tony Pollard. I mean, today becomes the day. Just remember, I'm saying this before the afternoon practice. Pollard becomes the camp phenom today.
Because that's what the Cowboys needed to be.
Yeah.
To kind of make Zeke feel a little bit unsettled. Geez, I'm not going to lose my job to this guy, but I don't want this guy to establish himself in any significant way. And you just spilled some mocha or something down in front of your beautiful Baylor T-shirt. So
coffee. I mean,
I guess there'll be a costume change.
I'm really struggling. Oh, man.
You know what? One other interesting.
What do you got?
When you're this close to Hollywood, you always like to see what celebrities might stop by. Given the Cowboys and how Hollywood-centric they can be at times. And so Paul and I were sitting here while you were doing whatever you were doing, hugging Sean Lee or something, and we noticed that Jerry walked by with Jamie Foxx. So Jamie Foxx is at practice today. I think Jamie Foxx should do a bit on the Cowboys' yoga drills in the morning. I think that would be outstanding.
Yeah, well, maybe you should give him that idea. Now, Jamie Foxx is from
So that makes Paul the second best stand-up comic in camp today.
Well, Jamie's more of he's an actor, singer. He has done stand-up.
I want you to go tell Jamie that Paul's better than him at stand-up.
I think Paul might be better because I think he's more of like a improv type. Didn't he come up on In Living Color? Did Jamie Foxx? Paul's sitting here. Paul's not turning on his mic. No, it's okay, Paul. You're doing great. You've done 3 hours of radio. That's plenty for today. But what I was going to try to say, Ed, Jamie is from Kaufman County. We both grew up together. He's a little bit older than I am.
A little bit more successful, a little richer.
I don't know. People in Kaufman would argue with you. People in Kaufman, Texas
Your
would
parents?
argue. And others. Others are very supportive of my work. But Terrell, Texas, the home of Jamie Foxx.
Jerry Jones' private guest, personal guest.
Yeah, I'm gonna go say hi to
at the first padded practice at training camp 2019.
His real name is Eric Bishop.
I think Jamie's going to be really upset when he finds out that he flew his Learjet out here to come out to practice and Zeke is not here. I think he's going to be very upset about that.
I think he probably knew that before he came in. He's pretty plugged in. He was also a quarterback in that Al Pacino movie, Any Given Sunday, where Cameron Diaz was kind of like the female general manager, the GM.
Why did you have to say she was a female thing? Because it's obvious Cameron Diaz is a female.
I don't know. She hadn't been in a lot of movies lately. I think Cameron can be a man's name. Yeah. It's the Doomsday Podcast. Edward or Matt Mosley. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you. And thanks to Frito Nation back home. This is another episode, number 2 in the books. We'll talk to you soon.
Is this house a good price compared to others in the area? Are prices going up or down? If I don't make an offer right this very moment, will I miss my chance? These are just some of the questions a home buyer might ask. And these are the sorts of questions an agent who is a Realtor can help answer. Because Realtors have the expertise, data, and access to specialty training to help you navigate the process of buying a home. They provide support, guidance, and have your back every step of the way. That's what Realtors do, because that's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.